And we got some ships going by. And it looks like he's, what do you think, well loaded? I think he's got a load.
Oh, he's definitely got a load. You can see the front's way down in the water.
Yeah.
Usually when they're empty, you'll see that the ballast underneath the ship will be sticking out of the water. So.
Yeah.
So he's definitely loaded.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So obviously we're up on the St. Lawrence, so having a good time. We're actually doing a little tracking with the autopilot features, and we are looking at the overshoots and the route navigation and playing with the routes. And yes, indeed, it does throw a couple of XCEs. We're on the St. Lawrence River again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to use a route with the Ghost trolling motor. So the Ghost trolling motor is going to be our autopilot. Okay, and this will be the same as if you have an autopilot system in your boat or whether you have a Ghost trolling motor. So first thing we're going to do is I've got some waypoints set up, and what I've got is that if you see on the screen here, you'll see that the numbers, I've numbered these with zeros in the front, and I'll show you why when I create the unit, why I put zeros there so I can easily get to them. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to create this little route, and then we'll let the trolling motor drive us around that route, and then I'll show you, when we get to the end of the route, we'll stop, and then we'll turn around and rerun the route the other direction. I'm going to create a route right now, so I want you to move over to the screen here. So I've got these waypoints. So now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Pages button. I'm going to go to Waypoints, Routes, okay? I'm going to create a new route. This is going to be what I'm going to call it as a ghost route, okay? And this is just a simple test route that we're just going to run those waypoints on, okay? So that's it. So now what I want to do is I want to add a new waypoint. By touching that, I do an insert, okay? I'm going to insert these 4 waypoints into this route, but you'll notice that when it pops up this waypoint list, it's all numerical order. So that's why I put 000 in front of my waypoints, so it's easy to get to these these waypoint numbers. If you haven't done that, then you have to scroll all the way through it. There's no way to search, unfortunately. Okay, so I'm gonna start at waypoint number 1, test 1. Okay, I'm gonna insert number 2. I'm gonna insert number 3. Insert 4, and then what I want to do is then I'm going to insert 1 again. So I'm going to try to make a complete loop here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a save on that. Okay. So now I have this route. It has 4 legs on it. Okay. And the distance is 0.36 miles. So if you look on the screen, if I scroll the screen up a little bit, you see there's our route. And that gives us our direction. You can see the little arrows in that. So I'm zooming in. You can see we're going to start on number 1. Okay. There's an arrow that says we're going to go from 1 to 2 to 3, back to 4, 3 to 4, and then back to 1. Okay. So that's how a route looks like on your screen. I'm going to flip over to me face. Okay. Now I'll say one thing about using an autopilot, and I'm very serious about this. I was on another end of the St. Lawrence River one day. A sailboat was coming up on me, no sails. He was running his autopilot, pretty obvious. I'm sitting there off the channel on my spot lock fishing, and he's barreling right towards me. He comes within like 10, 20 feet of the boat, and I have to yell at him because he's not paying attention to where he's going with his autopilot. Just because you have an autopilot doesn't mean it's smart enough to know there's traffic ahead of you, okay? Watch where you're going. Okay, I'm trying to be polite here, but if I could have gotten over to that guy in the boat, we would have had a little bit different conversation than me just simply yelling at him. Okay, it's very stupid not to pay attention where you're going on the water. Okay, this is not an auto guidance system. It is a tracking. It's a pilot. It's someone to drive the boat. You still have to have someone to watch it. Okay, so that's enough of my ranting on this. So now what we're going to do? Let's sit here and we're going to run this route. So I come back over to our routes, okay, and at this point I can do a start on the route. But what I want to do is I want to go through and make sure that my Ghost is set up as my autopilot, okay, so it has to be that. And I'm also going to tell it when I get to my final location, I'm going to tell it what I want to do when it gets there, okay. So the way to do that is hit the settings, go to your autopilot page, okay. Now, the autopilot, because I have my autopilot bar on before it showed the ghost, we know it's set properly, okay? And this is stowing. So what I'm going to do is the standby, and when I hit the arrival mode, okay, at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an anchor, okay? So when I get to my end location, I'm going to just sit there and anchor on the trolling motor. That way I stop it, everything's done. You probably will not be able to do that mode if you've got a standard autopilot system. But in this case, we've got a ghost trolling motor. Now the other thing you can do is you can put a compass up here, tell you your compass directions. I find that if you put that up there, it clutters up the screen. So we're just going to leave it off for now. So now let's go back. Let's start our route and see what happens, okay? So I'm going to get off of my anchor mode. We go to standby on that, okay? So now we're free drifting. I'm going to come over to our waypoints, routes, do that route, and now it's going to start. And I'm going to do it forward. So you got the option of going forward or backwards. So we're going to do a forward loop on that. And now we're going to do engage the autopilot in navigation mode. Hit yes. Okay. And you notice, pan up on you can see now the boat's moving by itself, which is always a fun thing. And let me clear my cursor. Now you see what it did on the screen for you. You see it put those gray lines around your route. So that's where it's expecting to take you to. And we got a little bit of extra current in the river today, so it might take a little bit to drive up to this location because we drifted off a wee bit. But if you back up, you can see that we're running 75% on the trolling motor, and that's the speed. You can go and obviously crank that up if you want to. We're right now doing 235 degrees on navigation. Okay, so we'll just let it go. And then what we'll do is as we go to each of these waypoints, we'll kind of look at how it negotiates turns. And what I've got these turns set up is that with the first one is basically our first line, it's a little bit less than 90. The second one is greater than 90, another one less than 90. Whoops. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to see how it does the routing software. Okay. So we're almost up on the first waypoint here, so it actually could start its route. And you'll notice that what's happened is that as we get to the section of the route, this gray area or the shaded area on the screen will go away. It's kind of neat. So that way you can almost immediately look at the screen and say, oh, how far am I into my route? Well, we know immediately. Okay, so now we're about to execute our first turn. And you notice the turn's a little bit funky. Remember, I've got this screen here. So, okay. So you can see we're navigating around the turns here. There we go. Now we're making our turn. All right. And then pan up and show what we're doing. Can you see the trees? Okay, cool. Okay. All right. So anyway, we're going to run. It's pretty close right on that house out over there on the shoreline, which just happens to be where Jesse Tacarani caught his, 6.5 or 7 pound fish a couple of falls ago when it was brutal outside, like 20-something degrees. So, but anyway, he was a happy camper. So anyway, we're running the route here. You notice it executed that first turn pretty clean. We'll see what happens when we get up to this turn. Pan over here. This is interesting. If you look on this map here, okay, this map already shows it where we tracked. It's got a black line. That's the route, the segment of the route we were executing on. The other sections of the route which are red are sections we haven't started navigating on. Okay, so you can see the route on all your screens, any of the maps. So you don't have to have it on the same machine that you're running on. Okay, so this should be. Why is that one? Okay, here's our turn. Let's see how it does this time. And it overshot. It always overshoots. And now we should be back on. There we go. So it overshot the turn. Now we're getting back on. From what I understand, the old 23.3 update was actually a little bit better on running routes than the 25.1, 25.2 updates. So I'm running 25.2 on my machines. So you notice that the first leg is clean. There's no shading anymore. Oops. And we're now on the second leg. Okay. Now what happens is we're not quite on this location yet, but it thinks we've reached the destination. Again, there's a certain buffer window that says you're close to it. What I want to do is I want to get to the waypoint. When we do that, then we'll be done. So we're tracking right on top of it. We are supposed to get to that waypoint and stop. So, all right. And okay. Okay. See where on the screen here where it says anchor? We just reached that waypoint, our test 1 waypoint, and now we're in anchor mode. So it did exactly what we wanted to do. So if you see this other window popping up on the screen, don't do anything, just let it complete its job as long as you got it set to anchor where you want to go, okay? So that's our running the loop. So this is what your screen's gonna look like after you've run your route, okay? You got the track line there, and you'll see that we got the route there and then the track. If I made the track a little bit different color, you'd be able to see the difference. In fact, let me do that, just make it a little bit easier for you to see. So let me go to routes, trails, change that trail to, say blue, green. There we go. So now we can see it. Now you can see our route underneath the trail. You can see the trail lines there is a little bit off, but what it did is like it overshot these corners a little bit, then it came right back on top of that route. And it did the same thing. It got up to this corner, overshot a little bit, little autocorrect, and that's just the algorithm. But it was pretty good at following the route. So if you're, say, running a route like this, I would not expect it to be 100% on the line all the time. I would not run the autopilot inside like a channel where you got to be able within 50 feet of the channel itself, where you may hit sandbars or rocks or whatever. But for our case, it worked fine because we're kind of out in the middle here. So just be aware of that. Again, I'm trying to not only show you how to do this, but show you some of the little tips. So what we're going to do now we're anchored up. Now what I want to do is I want to run that route in reverse, and we'll see what happens, okay? So again, the way to do that, we'll get a little rain here, of course. We're going to go back to our route page, okay? Go this route, okay? And again, I'm going to leave it so it stays at the anchor. So I'm going to do a start on that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this route in reverse, okay? And now I'm going to engage the autopilot again. And so now what it's going to do, it's going to run from test 1, 4, and then count it down and come back to 1 again, okay? So it gets a little goofy when it starts up, but seems to do okay. I hope this guy's still recording. I think it is. Okay. All right. So now we're on our route. So we're just gonna let it drive around in the circle. What I've noticed, it seems to be a little bit, the control algorithm's a little different because the way, I'm running, right now we're running heavily into current, whereas before we're running across current or with current. And we're on that back leg over here on the map. This back leg here, this is going into current, but at an angle, where this is almost going straight into the current. So again, you can now see we're at 76% on our trolling motor. Apparently we must have bumped the pedal a little bit. So, or the potentiometer got read a little bit slightly different. So anyway, so this is the basics of running routes. If you got any questions, let me know. There is one alarm it can throw, and I'll come back and I'll show you what happens when we hit that alarm. So now we're running our route in reverse order, and I mentioned earlier a little bit about alarms, okay? If you go to your alarm page. And the way to do that is you go to the alarms, okay, and you go to settings. And there's two alarms that are of interest for the autopilot, at least what we're running right now. One is the XTE, and that's an alarm that says if you're too far off your deviated course, then it will throw an alarm for you. Okay. Oh, I've seen that, and I'll try to. We'll turn that one on. We'll see if it happens on this route. The other is arrival. So let me know I'm reaching my arrival point. That one should work on both the end of the route, and it all should work when you do, say, a go-to waypoint, which I use a lot on the main lake, because if I'm running out in the main lake and I'm running 20, 30 miles out into the lake, I set a waypoint out there, I know where I'm going, I just do a go-to, and then I can throw an alarm when I'm getting near it, okay? So that's what it is. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna turn this XTE alarm on, okay? And then we're just gonna let this route. And so now we're coming up to our test 4. So we're gonna see how this executes this turn. This is a tight left turn, okay? Whereas the other route direction, we're making all right turns. These are left turns. You can see now, we're turning the boat. So, okay. You can hear the trolling motor grunting a little bit, which is normal. So we're getting, and my guess is if you get outside of this deviated, the gray area here, then you can toss the alarm. So we did not toss an alarm there. Okay. And now we're getting back on track, or route. Okay. So you can see we're not back on where we need to be. It'll put us on there. Okay. So we're coming up on the waypoint 3. This is another left turn. This is not quite a 90. It's like 120. So this one's actually looks like it's executing pretty tight. Okay. So far we haven't thrown an alarm. All right, so we've got the turn coming up. Let's see if it throws an XTE. See if it doesn't gross overshoot and then circles back. Does the circle back. Fortunately, we haven't heard that recently. Oops, sorry. There we go. There we go. We just threw the XTE. You notice you ran out of that gray area there? Okay. And that throws the alarm on all the machines. So I'm gonna do a close on that. It closes on everything. So now what we're gonna do, so I just cleared that alarm because again, you see that we ran out of that gray area. That's the XTE alarm. That's why you gotta pay attention. Just because it's driving the boat doesn't mean you can go to sleep. So let's go to our alarms. You notice that I cleared that alarm, so there's nothing there. We just threw the XTE. Okay. Just continue. Okay. You can see where I was testing it earlier on the 7th. Today's the 27th. So at 1 o'clock, it got it raised and cleared it. Okay. So again, if you want to get rid of that, you just go through and turn it back off. So now I'm not going to throw that alarm because we know what it does. We're out of that width, that track width there. So again, it seems to only happen on turns, so we're good to go. So anyway, possibly we believe a couple reasons that we may have condition-wise why we're getting overshoots on these turns. One was we've got a pretty stiff breeze on the river today. It's blowing right down with the current. So blowing with the current actually adds additional current to the boat, causing a little bit of difference in speed. Makes the trolling motor having to over adjust on certain things. Okay, so that's our basic routes. We're coming up on the end of our route here. Hopefully, I explained a little bit about what routes are, how you name your waypoints and make them easy to add to your route. How you turn alarms on and off. How you can run the route either directions, and what to do at the beginning and the end of the route, and how to make sure your autopilot's correct. Okay, so anyway. If you guys like this, please like the video. I appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. There's a lot more videos coming soon. There's a lot on the channel already, but hopefully I'll get back to doing some installs as well. But anyway, like I say, I really appreciate you guys watching this. And any questions, please feel free to add, pop them in the comments. I enjoy the positive comments I've gotten. Some of the negative ones I don't like, but positive ones are good. All right, thanks. Bye. And we're done.